Where's your cheetah one? I haven't seen that in a few days.
I know. I think it's in my car, actually. It's my bag, but I think it's in my car.
I know I've tried to be so today I have a blue dress on, so I'm trying to match,
But that's ambitious. That's way too ambitious for me.
It is hard.
No, that's being just with it. That's
Oh, well.
That's a diva, Elizabeth.
My husband said that it looks like I have a diaper on my face.
Yeah. I've seen some creative ones out there.
Yeah. Well, but I do have the one that stays on the passenger side of the front seat, because when you're running in somewhere and you forget.
Yep.
Oh, faithful.
She can't log in because she doesn't have it on yet.
Okay. Some of the East Side schools internet is out, and so our principals are they might be on or might not be on, but I'll call their name for roll. I think they're trying.
Right. Yeah, that's been a bit of a challenge today. So we understand.
But I think we're here and we're ready. So I can call our people. Okay. We have Deb Muller, Kevin Penley, Dr. Raimundo, Amber Ryan, Mark West, Rachel Hazel, Angie Polite, and John Cash. And I don't think, have you seen Narek? No,
She has not.
And Dr. Narek has not logged on yet.
Okay, so I'm here, Tracy Butler, Joy Crome, Matt Lawrence, Amy Hawkins, Barbara Hoffman, Beth Friedel, Bill Morrison, David Tyndall, Lakita Howard, Paulette McKibben-Shed, Valerie Jessup, Yvette Lascano. That's everybody. Yep.
And Rachel, did you say that Dr. Narig was there?
He's not
No.
logged on yet. He may log on. We're having some internet issues, but
Okay, thank you.
I'm actually not sure if he's one of the ones having internet issues.
Okay, so nice to see you again. So I'm thinking that perhaps you guys will just present what you have,
Okay.
and then we'll go from there. Okay.
Okay, that's fine. I'm going to share, if I can get permission, I'll share my screen. There we go. Sure this is the right one. I have several versions of this saved. I just want to make sure this is okay. Yep, that's right. All right, are you ready? You want me just to start then going through?
Sure.
Can I ask a question before you get started? Because I heard you say you have a number. This is number 4 that I can count on counters on this memorandum of understanding. Does that sound right to you?
Amber, does that sound right? Number 4? I know this is lucky session 13.
Yeah.
So it's lucky, right? Like,
Right.
We're going to get there.
To be honest, I have not counted the proposals back and forth.
We'll
Okay.
go with 4 if that's what you've got.
Okay. Thank you.
I can go back and count.
No, I think it's 4 because I printed them all out. I just was double checking myself. Thanks.
I've been trying to date them. I haven't been counting them. So, okay. All right, then. I'm just going to start at the top and I'll go through and I'll hit the highlights of it. I probably won't read the whole thing again, but we did go through the language that you had sent over and the language that we had previously, and we did our very best to, I know this is a very technical term, smoosh them together and make one document that we think encompasses as much as we could. I do want to put the disclaimer out there. There was a lot of discussion that went into this, and the discussion was centered around what can we do, what is the intent behind this, and let's make sure, because honestly, Elizabeth and all of your team, we're trying to get to the same place, which is a safe reopening of schools for everybody. And so if there's some words in here, semantics that we can discuss, but I think we hit the intent of what we were trying to get to. All right, as far as leave, again, we just want to reiterate, we would, of course, honor FMLA. The FFCRA, the Families First Corona Response Act, allows for 10 days up front, and that does not affect an employee's sick leave. And of course, we would continue to offer that. We are still offering to set aside up to $1 million to be used as administrative leave, which would allow up to 5 additional paid days. And of course, be in close communication should that be exhausted. We're still offering to meet with any employee, and we don't have to wait until the leave is exhausted. I meet with employees all day, every day, and talk through what options are. And we'll continue to follow the privacy and confidentiality rules.
Okay,
And I think
do you want me to ask questions now, or you want me to wait till the end?
Up to you.
Okay. So in this section, let me ask you about the up to $1 million. I think we've got a little bit of a hang up on that. Does that mean it may only be $500,000 or?
No, it means that we might not, the reason we put up to, no, we would put $1 million on the table. The reason we put up to is I was thinking more along the lines of if we don't use it all.
Well, if we didn't use it all, it would just revert back, right? I mean,
right.
No one's trying to make money on this deal. We're just trying to cover.
We're not trying to make money. We would, if the entire $1 million was needed in leave, we would use the entire $1 million. But if it's not, if employees only needed 500,000, that's where we would, we're not trying to make money on the deal.
Okay, so would you be, a friendly amendment, would you take the district agrees to set aside no more than $1 million to be used as administrative leave? In other words, so later it doesn't come up in, if we have a problem, there would be an argument, well, they did say up to 1 million. So if they only put in 500 and that's where they decide to stop, that's their prerogative.
Or if we just struck the up to, the district agrees to set aside $1 million, would that work too?
That would work too. I just want to make them comfortable, but we have said on record that we understand that if we don't use the whole million, that's not going to be sitting in some leave box somewhere.
Right.
We agree that it's going to flip back over to your gen fund or wherever.
Yep.
That's fine. Either way is fine with us. It's already approved through the CARES Act. So through that approval process, that's what we've set aside, but we're fine either way with that.
So that million's coming from the CARES Act?
Yes.
But I thought we had prior discussions when we talked about this initially that the CARES Act money was all spent. Have we shuffled some things around?
Yes, we did.
Okay, so is there a way to know what was shuffled around? I mean, will it be presented to the board again so that I could look at the document, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, we just need the document.
Yeah, we can provide that.
Thank you.
But the thing is that realize that FFCRA is going to be about $10 million before we even get to $1 million.
No, I mean, I get all of that, Deb. I'm just curious what was moved and what went where. That's all. I'm not, I got it. I just want to see how it was reallocated is what I guess I'm saying in a really bad way.
Okay, so are we good with that to move on? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we added language in part A of, I'm sorry, I'm scrolling all over the place. We added language in part A of the Volusia Live because I think what we heard you say was we would just want to be real clear that elementary classroom teachers shall not be required to teach face-to-face and Volusia Live simultaneously. So we just added that sentence to make it a little more clear.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
And then, so this is where we did a lot of some changing. So I just want to go through and read what we have here. At each secondary school, an initial virtual meeting shall occur between administration, department chairs, and their view steward. Absent a view steward, the building principal, absent a view steward in the building, the view president and principal will select a designee with the purpose of collaborating to determine if there are opportunities to implement a dedicated teacher for Volusia Live within the staffing formula and school schedule. This meeting shall take place prior to August 21st, 2020. We did change that date from August 24th because our principals were very anxious to get started on this. So depending on where we land, we'll, dates are of course, but our principals were anxious to get started doing that. A summary would be provided to the assistant superintendent. The assistant superintendent and view president will meet to determine feasibility and implementation and make a final recommendation to the superintendent. And then we left the plan, what the plan must include is the same.
Okay, on that one, let's go back to that one. I will tell you, just the other parts, I'm not sure about the hang up there, but I'll tell you the hang up on the principal will, the view president and the principal will select a designee. That's never going to be agreed to. We're never going to allow another party to suggest our designee. So that's a big hold up there, a big problem there. I don't see why we would even put that in there. The view president needs to select their designee at the site themselves.
I can talk to that, and I can tell you what we're looking for there, Tracy, is that the principals had a concern, and it's not, and we understand that there are some schools, and I understand the reason for wanting to be able to select a designee if there's not a view steward, and I know why the view steward's not there. The principals had a concern, not so much with someone on your team or that works for View coming into the building and being a part of that, but they had a huge concern with only that occurring and not having someone who's actually not at the school building being that representative. So the concern is not so much about View selecting someone as it is that they want to make sure that they have someone from View who is actually on the school campus and works at the school as well.
Well, that's an easy fix. We can say the View president will select a designee from the site.
But I want to push back a little bit on that too. I mean, the purpose of what we do is to build relationships, so that we can find solutions to site-based issues. So, I mean, I understand the desire to have someone from the school on the team, and that would be what we would want too. But if there isn't a View steward there, why would there be a hesitation to? And I'm not saying we would automatically appoint a staff person because we only have 4 of them, right? And we've got 70 schools, but I don't understand the hesitation necessarily because we want to build those relationships and work collaboratively, and what better way to do that? And particularly in this work, if there is that shoulder to shoulder work, and we get it done where both sides understand what has occurred, I think that school would probably be one of the ones we wouldn't even engage in conversations because we know exactly what's going on and they're doing things in an acceptable manner.
Right. And I don't think they're going to have an issue. I mean, I see there where it says designees. I don't think they're going to have an issue with that as much as they want to make sure that view representation, at least in some part, is from their school site.
Well, just
Well,
a recommendation.
Go ahead, Tracy.
I was just going to say a recommendation. It would be to never propose this kind of thing because we don't even allow the principals and all of them, or even the non-members are not even part of choosing our stewards. So this is our privilege. This is what we do. And so that's another reason why the principal doesn't know what we do behind the scenes, what happens and where the level of our training is with our members and our stewards and representatives. So we have to choose the person that would have the best skill set to handle this. And so that's why the principal doesn't know where our people are in their skill set with regards to union responsibilities.
Well, and agreed, but we don't typically involve them in this master schedule building either. And so this is and we recognize what a huge task this is, which is why it was so important to have someone from the site there. So if you wanted to propose a designee from the school site, that's fine as well. And I'm not even completely opposed. I have to get with the principals, but I'm not completely opposed to. It's just very important that a VIEW member from the school site be there.
Well, we're not limited to just one representative, correct?
That's what I was saying, correct.
Okay, all right.
Correct.
I think we could work on that and submit something back.
Okay. All right, so then the evaluation piece, just this year, the numbers and that language, we feel like we have to leave it October 1st. I did hear you with that, but we did leave that at October 1st. We added in, and I do want to point out, I don't have that in this document. I took the ad hoc things and put them up within the document where they kind of belonged. I thought it would be a little cleaner for us.
We're laughing because we were talking about that in our pre-meeting. And so we wanted to do that too. It was killing us.
Yeah.
We want to see
I just wanted to point that out. This is new language, but some of it I've moved up.
Okay.
So the unauthorized videotaping of teachers during Volusia Live would be considered a disciplinary infraction and addressed according to the code of conduct, which is exactly, I heard that as a concern yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers and administrators will work together to maximize student attendance. I need to move this screen here so that I can see it. If reasonable attempts have been made to engage students, and we put a minimum of 3 documented attempts and 1 must be a phone call, teachers would not be negatively impacted due to student attendance. We also added, it's understood that teachers have a degree of qualified immunity and that immunity would apply to the Volusia Live teaching model.
So
and
I know, can I jump real quick? So I know when we spoke about this yesterday, Mr. Penley, I believe, said all employees. So would it be acceptable to change that to bargaining unit members? Just so we cover paras without having to say paras, or do we just add paras?
About immunity. Does that cover all employees or just, yes. Oh, yes, it would be, he said.
So we could make that switch then.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Operating within the course and scope of their employment.
Operating, did you get that?
I did. And, I'm just thinking that some of our paraprofessionals more than likely will be engaging using Volusia Live. So we just want to make sure that they are covered as well. That's all.
Okay, so do you want to make that change when you counter then?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, and we left in the Zooms language, and I think the other is the same about having all the necessary tools. Those are just things that I moved up. For Volusia Online Learning, this language I went directly to Dr. Peterson for about class preps. And this was exactly what she gave me, that class preps for secondary teachers teaching Volusia Online are based on the total number of course enrollments. Every effort should be made to limit to 2 preps and would not exceed 4. She said she is still working through the numbers and that is where she is with that. Now, as far as staffing formulas, we did not put that specific language in here, but I do have the staffing allocation formulas for you. For K through 3. Let me pull that up.
You mean class size? Well, I guess you could be staffing.
Is there staffing allocation numbers? Do you have those? I have them right. You know what? Can I come back to that after I close out?
Of course.
I have them in an email, but I'm having trouble switching screens. Okay, so the district, the cleaning and safety, let me see what we've added here.
No, that actually.
The record keeping on G, it is agreed that record keeping shall occur electronically whenever possible. In cases where electronic forms are not possible, scanning would be utilized to ensure a safe exchange of paper.
What's that for?
That was something that you had mentioned yesterday, and I think it was specifically in reference to ESE, but as I know they handle a lot of paper, but you were looking to include electronic forms when possible. I think.
And you've got that under cleaning and safety?
Well, a safety measure, I was under the assumption that it had to do with the exchange of paper. So if it's not, if that's not it.
Well, we might have something similar to that in a different section. So when so we'll clean that up. Because if that's specific to ESE case managers and service providers, I think maybe we'll
I think it definitely applies to them, but I don't know that it was written like I definitely had that in mind when I was writing it, but I thought in a more general term, like we would want that for all of our teachers as well. So if there's something specific to them, we just need to clean that up then.
Okay.
Symptomatic individuals will be sent to the designated area on campus as outlined in the reopening plan. They will not be allowed to return to class until the protocol for clearance has been followed. So what we heard yesterday loud and clear was we don't want the rooms to be full and symptomatic or suspected cases be sent back to class. And I think that's a very reasonable request. When practical, bargaining unit members will have the option to attend meetings remotely from their classroom or workspace, including IEP and articulation meetings, unless personnel are required to attend due to parent request.
Okay.
And
then, I'm sorry.
Well, the next one kind of ties into that, and then I have Mr. Penley here and can answer questions about that as well. Bargaining unit members shall not be required to travel to another school site for meetings unless personnel are required to attend due to parent request. So we've added both of those things for language as far as meetings go.
Can you talk to me, please, a little bit more about the parent request?
In particular, we're concerned with teachers being requested to attend IET meetings where we're required to have certain personnel at the meeting in order to comply with federal law.
Right, that's my same concern too. And so is there any, because I know with the closure period, there was flexibility provided that came down, I guess from DOE. Is that same flexibility afforded in this circumstance?
No.
Okay. And so if we are going to require that folks attend face-to-face, are they mandated to attend for the duration of the meeting, or can they do their part and then be exited from the meeting?
Under IDEA, there are provisions for personnel to be excused from meetings upon parent written consent.
Okay, so upon parent written consent. So are we gonna, so what I'm trying to establish is a way that if they are in fact are mandated to attend, if a parent says, I want everybody there, first of all, I'm gonna hope that we're practicing appropriate social distancing, first of all. So I'm putting that out there that we're doing that, but I want to suggest that we allow them the most efficient use of the time. Get in, do your part. Like if I'm the gen ed teacher and all I have to do is talk about present levels, I should be able to be excused after I do the present levels piece, because I don't need to sit there for the remainder of the time, which sometimes can be 2 hours or more. So can we put in a mechanism to expedite people's contribution to the meeting?
That is a matter of this memorandum now,
Why is that no?
because it's an IEP team decision, has to be done on an individualized basis at every meeting.
So as a district, are we looking for a mechanism to expedite teacher participation in IEP meetings?
I don't have the answer to that. I have to find out.
When would you be able to get an answer to us?
We can contact Ms. Wiles at a caucus.
Okay, let's keep going.
Let me ask, will face masks be mandated for those meetings?
The
Have you read
would
policy
apply.
503?
Excuse me?
Have you read policy 503?
Okay, I would appreciate some respect here, please. My question was, are we going to mandate?
Yes, according to the policy where social distancing cannot be maintained, masks are required in confined spaces.
Thank you for your answer.
Can I just ask what happened here? Why all of a sudden is there such anger and hostility in trying to work this out? I thought we were going along really well, and all of a sudden we ask a question or two and we're getting some kind of hostility. I don't understand that. And I agree with you, Rachel, that we're both working towards the same goal to provide a safe return to our folks. And so we're asking some questions that have been brought to us, quite frankly, by some ESE case managers. And here's the opportunity to ask the question. And then all of a sudden, you know, we're incurring this insidious wrath and negativity. What happened?
Let's keep going through this. We will talk with Ms. Wiles at caucus and get an answer for what our statement as a district is as it goes with IEPs. I understand what the request is, so we'll get that information. These other things within the safe opening are the same language. I believe a lot of it came from what you proposed as far as teachers and staff should not be required to attend extracurricular activities, including open house, science night, math night, holiday events. I did take out the open house would be a virtual event just because I felt like this one covered it. But if you want to add that back in, we can. That's not a big deal to me. I just felt like it covered it. No members of the bargaining unit shall be required to use their own personal electronic devices. All of this is the same that we've gone over before.
Okay.
The bridge back to brick and mortar is the same as what we had proposed before, and I think we both agreed on that. And then we have the retirement incentive language, which is the same proposal as before.
So on the retirement, there was a rejection of what we proposed yesterday at the 17.5% with the removal of the medical premium subsidy, or did that just not get updated?
I know you looked at it, but we didn't.
Yeah, we didn't update it.
We didn't.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. That's fine. That's fine. Thanks, Deb. So we'll not look at that piece then, if that's what you're saying. Is that what we're saying?
Yes. Yes, it's not been updated. That's what we're saying.
You're gonna give me a stroke.
So that's where we are. I know I will contact Ms. Wiles about the message from the district as far as that goes. Oh, and I do have the numbers for you, the staffing allocation numbers for Volusia Online. So let me give you those.
Okay.
For grades 3. Oh, okay. Which is grades K through 3. The staffing allocation is 35. For grades 4 and 5, it is 45. and for secondary, it's 180.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. Now, if we were to just to be specific, because remember we had the conversation about specificity.
Mhm.
And so if we were to just insert those, that wouldn't be a problem necessarily, because I mean, that's drawing right from Dr. Peterson. So just like I said, to be clear and specific and have everybody across the board, well, we'll do our work and then you guys see.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to send this over to you right now.
Okay. And then I don't know, is Dr. Raimondo there today? She was going to give us some
Here.
feedback, right? Okay.
Give me a moment.
Okay. I'm sending this to you right now.
Thank you.
Dr. Raimundo is logging on, I think.
Yes, she is.
I think I hear her.
Where am I? Okay, here we go. Hi there, Elizabeth.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good afternoon, actually. Good afternoon.
Yes, it is, by 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Okay. I did look into, your question was about the walk to intervention model.
Yep.
And departmentalization and what that would look like. So I'm going to start with the departmentalize, because the response was provided for me that we just received the green light to allow schools to move, to allow movement for departmentalization. Obviously, making sure that safety and cleaning protocols are in place before and after transitions. Schools with departmentalization and live have to work with teachers to develop a plan they agree upon that is in alignment with departmentalization. Some schools have that may have few students will be asked to cluster the live students and allow them to rotate with a smaller group to the face-to-face students. For departmentalization as well, each of the teachers would only have the live students blended for part of the day. The other thing is for intervention model, and then I will take any questions if you still have any. That model and what it looks like with the live option, there will be intervention because we are required to provide that tier 2 and tier 3 services and report that to the state. So most schools are keeping the walk to intervention model, ensuring safety protocols are in place before and after each of the transitions. And each school will need to work on the intervention plan that would work with their scenario, obviously, and the needs of the different students. And one example that was provided was if a separate intervention teacher could cluster the live students for each grade level to deliver the interventions, or the intervention teacher could push in services on a regular schedule, and the students would log into the intervention sessions. Obviously, during this time, there would be assigned seating as well.
Okay.
And I've lost you somewhere. Okay, there you go.
Right. So that was a lot of information real quick. So let's talk about walk to intervention first. If
Yes,
we could. Okay. So walk to intervention. So the students that are, so what I think I heard you say is that the students who are in the brick and mortar setting will actually transition the way we typically have done walk to intervention in the past.
Yes.
And there will be a site-based plan that ensures safety and cleaning and all of that.
Yes, ma'am. And
So-
there would be assigned seating as well to ensure where the placement of the students, that would be where they would come when they move into those rooms.
Okay. And then, okay, so that's what I heard you say. And then students that are on Volusia Live, they would just, I mean, we could work that out as far as designating a time for the service provider to engage, everybody meet on this Teams channel at this time. Is that kind of what what it might look like? Is that what it might look like?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. So I think I understand what you've said there. And then departmentalizing.
Yes.
So again, students will be moving. There will be protocols in place for student movement with cleaning and safety expectations. But this is where I got a little confused and maybe had a delay in listening. So what I thought I heard you say was that there would be live students blended into the departmentalized classes. Or did I
What,
make it up?
what was shared with me was that with departmentalization, each of the teachers would only have live students blended for part of the day. And my understanding is that I know that we said they wouldn't have both students. My understanding is that they have a section and they're working it in school by school, that what they're going to do based on the rotations they have. One section would be where they would do the blended, not the blended, the brick and mortar. And then one section would end up being the live students. But it is dependent upon the schedule that they have, but not
It
simultaneously.
wouldn't be a simultaneous
Right.
model.
Okay, so just because I'm trying to make sense of this in my head, so I'm the math and science person with
Okay.
I have a teammate who does ELA, social studies, all the other really hard stuff. So I'm doing math and science. So in the morning, I might have all the face-to-face math and science, and then in the afternoon, I have
Volusia Live.
Volusia Live.
Volusia Live, yes, ma'am.
So in
You
the
would not
morning,
have
my
it together.
teammate would have all the Volusia Live, and then she would have, or he would have the face-to-face in the afternoon.
Right, you would just mix and match. So in other
That-
words, in the morning I have live, in the afternoon I would have brick and mortar.
And that could happen,
Right,
but it could also happen. It just really depends on the numbers of schools. If you have enough to have 2 sections of Volusia Live, you could departmentalize within that. It's also going to depend on how the teachers are paired up, or if they're paired, or if it's a true departmentalization where
It's all
They-
four.
right. So, I mean, I see it working a number of different ways. I think the key is the not simultaneous.
correct.
Yes, and so so do you think, just, and this is just helping me get my head around things, do you think it's more feasible? Like, and I guess of course it's school by school, but I don't know really what the numbers are looking like at each school.
The
Because
Volusia Live numbers are a little bit lower well, obviously they're lower than the brick and mortar numbers, but in some cases it is significantly lower. And those are the schools that we've been particularly working with. But ironically, those are also the schools where I don't see departmentalization.
Exactly.
The larger schools tend to have the departmentalization.
okay.
So Elizabeth, that's why I can't tell you that that's going to be the same across the board for all schools, because it's dependent upon numbers, school to school, and the model that they may have.
So if they don't have the numbers, will they just not departmentalize this year?
Departmentalization is there. That is an option for them. If obviously I can't answer that if they don't have the numbers. That was the model that was placed there. So it is an option for delivery.
I think that's a model. I think that's when you got to go to your teachers and say, these are the numbers, let's make it work. And that's, I think that's where you've got to, if it's down to, and our teachers know, I mean, I've worked in this district long enough with enough teachers to know, they know like what will work, what won't work. And we've got to start talking to them and saying, what is it that we can do that will work?
And those discussions are being had with principals and teachers based on, as the numbers rolling in and what that's going to look like.
Well, I love hearing you ladies say that, because that's what we've been saying too. Go to the ones that are doing the work. So thank you for that. I know that's good. All right. Now we mentioned ESE, ESOL. Was there any?
I know that was raised to Miss Wiles this morning, and I know that she was meeting with her team this afternoon. I can honestly, as we're going to call her, see if we have an update to that, and we can provide you with that information.
Thank you. And when you do speak with her, a question came in last night after they watched the bargaining session yesterday and listened to our conversation. The question was about multi-VE.
Okay.
They're just very concerned about how it's going to work.
Simultaneously.
Well, not only that, but with social distancing and masks and all of that, because that's a very challenging group, I think, to get to adhere to those guidelines. And the teachers, they don't know what to do. They don't know what to think about.
Well, and I know I've spoken with Ms. Wiles this morning on another issue. and briefly talked about this and what they're struggling with. And I know they're looking for, especially for those low incidence programs, they're looking more regionally, like we had talked about, because there are smaller numbers, but also with particularly the support facilitation models, because those are so much driven by program. Like you might have 5 or 6 kids in corrective reading decoding, and if 2 of those kids are brick and mortar and 3 of them are live, I think, again, in talking with the teachers, she's finding that for time efficiency, does it make sense to do the same lesson with 3 kids sitting in front of me and on the computer? How does that work? In a smaller group, it's more doable to do those together. And so that's almost got to be a case by case scenario as well. Now, I can certainly understand if you've got, although I don't think this happens, but if you've got a group of 15 kids and half, like that's more like a regular classroom model. But in these really small groups where you might have 3 kids doing a program and 1 kid on live, to sit at the table and have 1 on the computer and 3 sitting right in front of you is a little more doable. And I know that they're looking into that, but they haven't made those concrete decisions yet.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I think we're at the point where we would like to take time to review the proposal. But before I go, can I give you a couple things to think about too?
Sure.
So we were contacted with some questions about the plexiglass.
Okay.
And I know that there is an ordering process, and this is what I've been sharing, is that I know it was ordered. Probably the delivery and rollout is staggered based on supply and demand. So I'm saying that, sharing that. But what I'm hearing is that some schools that are starting to receive the plexiglass, this is primarily elementary at this point, there's not enough for everyone. And then some folks are reporting that they're being told that their students are going to have to travel with their plexiglass. So for example, walk to. If I am going to walk to intervention for my SIPs, am I going to be expected as a first grader to travel with my plexiglass or take it with me to special area? Or, I mean,
I hear it.
Getting from the schools.
So I'm seeing that we ordered 60,000 of them, which is obviously more than we have students.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we were told that the delivery date is going to be August the 27th. So anything arriving now is just an early shipment and certainly not the complete shipment. And if we ordered 60,000, then we have more than enough.
Okay, that's good information for us. So as we respond to our folks, we'll share that information. So thank you for that. Okay, well, and we're still hiring for VOL and putting up
every spare minute we're hiring for VOL. Yeah.
So someone was told that we're hiring on the spot. Would that be an accurate?
On the spot. I wonder what that means.
I don't know what it means. That's why I wanted to ask. So if I see an opening and I put in my application and somebody calls me and says, "Hey, you're hired," is that how it? I mean, I thought there was a video that had.
There's a video process now, as far as like they'll be contacted as soon as they submit that, and some of the people are there's an interview process, but we do have a team that's working on that.
Right. All right. So I'll just tell everyone there is an interview process. You do need to follow the steps.
Yes, please follow the steps.
Got it. Okay. So we're going to ask for, it's 12:15. Could we come back at 12:45? Take 30 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So we'll see you at 12:45.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're saving the document and we'll be right in.
I miss my help. I miss Josh helping me with this, letting people in stuff. There we go.
I'm trying to catch him when I see him.
Thank you. As we do the 3 other jobs too.
You think that's everybody?
I think we're all back.
I think we made it back. Did Bill? Yep, Bill's back. Matt's back. Amy. Is Paulette back? Where's Paulette? And there she is. Okay. All right. So do you remember, Rachel, a couple weeks ago when you sent me a proposal and you said the fonts are all different and there's misalignment?
Oh, yeah, I can forgive all of those things.
Well, that's a good thing because
We can fix all that later.
perfect. I love that. All right. So if you're ready, I will share my screen and just give a little grace because it is a coat of many colors.
Oh, that means there's a lot of changes.
Well, it's not necessarily.
Okay.
All right. It's like a rainbow. It's very, it's a good thing. It means the storm's passed. Okay, cut it out. All right, here we go. So the stuff at the top is the same as always. A, B, they stayed the same. So when we got to C, we had talked about taking out the up to. So we just did that, right?
Okay.
So the $1 million. And so we just put that it would be once the FFCRA leave was exhausted and before the employee's earned sick leave was utilized, just to clarify, just the intent. And we took out the VCS intake interview because we didn't really understand the necessity for that. And we just said that they shall be eligible for a maximum additional 5 days of paid. We just wanted to clean it up, make sure that we were very specific because we're looking for specifics. And we left the rest. We did add D because we had a conversation again, because our whole intent is to try to find some ways if folks do have to isolate, if they have to go out because they're exposed or get sick, how we can help them. And so we're talking about the opportunity for VIEW in the district to come together and work together to create a COVID specific sick leave bank. And so I think it brings in a little bit of what we had talked about that the district had wanted, which was utilization of some sick leave, but then it also brings together some of what we wanted, which were some safeguards and a safety net. So I know, speaking as an individual, I would be more than happy to donate a day to get into the pool. Whether I need it or not, I'm happy to put a day in. And then if I don't use it, thank goodness, I'm happy to let somebody else have it who needs it. So that's something that we put in there, a joint committee comprised of 3 folks from the district, 3 folks appointed by the union to meet and establish a process and protocol. But it would only be for the length of time that we would need this MOU, right? It would collapse once we're done with COVID. Okay.
Okay. Do you want me to ask questions now or do you want to?
Now is fine.
Okay. So my first question, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page with this. When you strike the intake interview is really just determining whether or not it is truly like having some kind of documented need, not just like saying, I think I need to quarantine because I would, for undocumented reasons. So, I mean, I don't really have a problem with if it's a doctor's recommendation or our intake. We would still want them to go through and talk to determine that doctor's note, but you're agreeing that a doctor's recommendation would be needed? Is that what I'm understanding?
I don't know if I would go that far. I
They
don't,
may just be told to quarantine.
yeah,
And so, like, for example, my doctor's meetings have been like this, Zoom. And so if the doctor tells them, well, if you've been exposed, you probably need to quarantine. I mean,
Right.
would they need a doctor's note for that? How are you handling it now?
Well, that's what's been happening as far as like and honestly, what I'm finding as I work through this process with employees is that doctors are more restrictive on the quarantine need than even the guidelines or the protocols that we've gotten from the health department have been. So like the doctors, like, let's say I go in with any symptom and not even necessarily a COVID related symptom, but any need for a doctor, and the doctors will say, well, while you're here, let's test you for COVID, and then you need to quarantine until these results come back. So I'm finding that in some instances, not all, that the doctors are more restrictive. And again, I don't want to get hung up on that. We can talk about it and see where we are with that. But I just wanted to clarify and make sure that you understood, like, our intake process is just clarification of that to work with the employee. And it goes on both ways. Sometimes we say we're a little bit more cautious than the doctors are as far as quarantining, and sometimes it's not. But I sent you the questions I think that are asked in that interview process.
You did, and I think that we aren't really liking the intake form for many reasons, not just this one. So that's why we don't want to reference it. I have concerns with the intake form, but I think that I get that you need something to try to go on, but I don't think everybody's going to be in a situation where, one, they could afford to even make a doctor's appointment to get them to say, oh, yes, you're, so what are we going to do in those situations?
Well, could we do then a doctor's recommendation or the intake interview?
well, what if, so I understand that you're looking for something to document the need to quarantine, right? Or to be out. But what if,
Right.
what if I'm the,
Right. It can't just be, and it can't just be like, I think I need to quarantine for whatever. I mean, I can't think of the reason.
I don't disagree. I hear what you're saying is we just can't have people saying, but at
give
the
me
same
5 days
time,
off, right?
yeah, we need to come up with something in the middle though, because I think the intake form, like I said, that's problematic. Some of the questions on there are problematic for us. And I don't think that person who's got the intake form has the right level of knowledge to say, well, I don't think you do. So come on in. How's that going to work? If they say, well, no,
I'm gonna be real honest with you. We fall more on the I think you do more than we fall on the I don't think you do.
Well, that's good to hear.
And that's what I'm running into with our employees, are saying, she's telling me I need to quarantine and I don't think I do. And
So is there, who does the intake interview?
Debbie Fisher.
So she's the only one that does them.
Yes.
So if I am working at a school site and I call up my principal and I say, listen, I think I've been exposed, or I've got a runny nose, fever, stomach ache, they shoot me to Debbie Fisher, or the principal can tell me?
They send you to Debbie Fisher.
Okay, so that's not happening across the board, I can tell you, because I had an email from a gal yesterday who called, told her principal that she felt like she had been exposed. They asked, are you symptomatic? No. Well, come on in then, or we're going to dock your pay. So she went in, she sent me.
Well, that's something I need to know about and need to deal with, because that's not our directions. And we've been clear multiple times. I'm looking at Mark because he was on the calls with me, that the first step is to call Debbie Fisher, and the second, and then Debbie decides. She asks a series of questions, and she will say, either based on this, you do need to quarantine or you don't need to quarantine. And if you do need to quarantine, she sends it to me to do the leave, to walk through leave with the employee. And and I don't get into the health related questions. I just recommend leave. I just get told they need to quarantine for this length of time. And then I help them with the leave portion of it. Now on the other end, if they have doctor's documentation and the doctor's document and they want to just go that route rather than speaking with Debbie, we just run that through very quickly. But
well, and it does say in the language, it does say who are required to quarantine based on a doctor's recommendation. What if we were, what might we be able to add there to get to
well, and I hear what Tracy's saying. If people aren't necessarily going to a doctor, or like for instance, if I'm in a room in close contact, and I'm trying to think of a scenario at home where like, or my husband has it, but I haven't been to the doctor, then that intake interview would be the thing enough without me going to the doctor. So I really think if we just added or intake interview, and then if we want to have a conversation outside of this about the intake interview, I'm fine with that.
All right, I think we could consider that. This is not something that I want to hold up the whole process on. I
Okay.
find a solution here, right? I think so.
Okay. I mean, if we just do or, I mean, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. All right. Okay. And then, okay, so you were asking questions because I'd gone through all of it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, no, wait, I didn't go through all of it because I didn't tell you what I did in F
Okay.
or E. Did I even tell you what I did in E?
No.
Okay. So in E, we just wanted it, suggesting that when above leave provisions are exhausted, the employee shall be eligible for additional leave options. And then the rest of that is what we've already been talking about. Because remember, some of our folks would probably want to save their terminal leave for when they retire, and just take an unpaid right now if they could afford to do so. So we don't want there to be a trigger that if you're going to go out, you have to exhaust all of your sick leave before you can go on unpaid leave. And then in F, we took out FERPA because FERPA is primarily for students. And so we just figured HIPAA would cover all that we needed to cover there.
Okay.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about here?
No.
Okay. All right.
We'll probably need a quick caucus to look at it, but
Yeah, that's not a problem. And as we go down through,
Mr. West has a question. Sorry.
certainly.
All
Need
right,
to cut him
good
off.
afternoon. No, just a question about the sick leave bank. I know we currently have a sick leave bank process in the contract, right?
Correct.
So are you saying this is like a temporary sick leave bank?
Yes, it would just be for the purposes of COVID-19. And then when we don't need it anymore, it would go away.
And let me
So
add that we want the conditions to be different. We're going to recommend the conditions be different. And that is currently the sick leave bank, you have to have a minimum of X days. Typically it's 10. I'm not sure about your counting, but in this one, we would just say if a person has a day, they can jump in the bank with the day and the bank will have however many's in there. And there's another way that this could be resolved, or we could beef up the language, and that is your school board policy never adopted something that the legislation did several years back, and that is that you don't, when sharing of leave, it doesn't have to just be among families. So the legislation opened up a few years back to allow it where you can actually share it with your colleague. And I noticed in your school board policies, you guys didn't go that route, but that is another way. Again, we're trying here to give our people every opportunity to exercise some other leave other than burning through all of their leave.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so Volusia Live. All right. So this is your language. This was what you guys had. So we just used it. So, and this is all the same. Okay. Now.
Was that, so that's an agreement?
Well, they had seniority to D, correct?
Well, we had seniority before.
Oh, got it. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, yep, that is an agreement. Look at that. So in B though, so this is where we're gonna have to have some more conversation. So this is almost exactly what we had proposed the last time with a minor exception. So, you know, we still want to stress to you that because of all of the transition that we know is even still going on today with movement of teachers from one site to another, we are we are seeing that some of our stewards are moving. And so we are bringing on new stewards. We don't have stewards in some places. I mean, I've got a whole list of folks to run by the executive board for appointments, but they're not there yet. And so even if we do happen to have a steward in a school site, it might be they might be brand new. So that's why we're asking for the ability to make those appointments. Now, we've heard you, and we agree that someone who is a member of the faculty and knows the culture and understands the dynamics of that school site should be heavily considered, and that would be our default. But we also want to have the ability, if it's a brand new steward or someone who is uncomfortable maybe in that role, to bring in a staff member if we need to, or myself, or you know, an additional member from that school. So that's why we've kept our language at the top, basically the same. We did add the green. So what it says there, the views president designee with the purpose of collaborating to determine opportunities to implement a dedicated class period or teacher model, identifying that in secondary, we may not be able to get a separate teacher, but we might be able to get a class period. And I think that aligns with what we talked about yesterday. And then the rest, okay, so we kept the language there with the assistant superintendent and the view president for final review. You, I believe, had that same last sentence, the assistant superintendent and view president will determine feasibility and implementation. And then we struck all of A through E because we felt that when the committee was creating the plan, they would take those things into consideration anyway. I know that if I am looking at a plan, I would take those things into consideration anyway. And so we just felt that the language wasn't necessary there. And I hope you're really excited about C that we're going to, because let's look at C. And this is big for us. So if no plan is feasible, and where secondary teachers must teach face-to-face and Volusia Live simultaneously, those teachers will receive a stipend equivalent to their hourly salary for the periods worked teaching simultaneously. And then we've included some language about class size for secondary teachers doing face-to-face and Volusia Live simultaneously if we're not able to get it separated out. And we're recommending that we cap face-to-face to 12 and Volusia Live to 10. And then the next language that you had, we created a separate section for evaluation. So we just moved those pieces. Any questions?
No questions.
Okay.
And you have G there as well.
Yep, we've got more Volusia Live too. I didn't want to go to the next page though.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. And so this is the same language that we had before. We just added this last sentence on because we had agreed to this last sentence in the ad hoc piece. And so I moved it from ad hoc below and tagged it onto this one because we had agreed on that yesterday. And I turned it green just to point out that, so all teachers will have access to Teams or Zoom to use as platforms for instructions. They'll be provided by the district. Teachers and paraprofessionals will not be required to utilize platforms provided by the district. Okay, and you can see my two greens don't match, but you get it, right? Yeah. Volusia, and we talked about these things yesterday. So Volusia Live should not be used for the purpose of discipline, such as in and out of school suspension. For the sake of continuity changes in the enrollment, we're asking for those natural breaks where we have the transitions back into brick and mortar. And then J, we talked about this. And so we just wanted, because we spoke about it, I felt it was, and we had agreed on it, I wanted to put it in here just to make sure we codified what we said. So students shall not be assigned to monitor Volusia Live using the teacher's district computer or to act as a liaison during lessons. PE teachers shall not be required to take their computer outside during PE lessons. Volusia Live students will work on their own during field time. Now in L, this was your language and we brought it over, and that's why I kept it red. So this was the language that you just proposed. So this was about the attendance piece, and then we added this piece to the back of it. And that was, and we had originally asked for 2, we moved it up to 3 here. So if the teacher has 3 documented attempts, we're just asking that the administrator step in and help support. That's all we're asking for there, for the contact.
Okay.
We talked about speech and language yesterday, so we added it here, that they're not going to provide that face-to-face and Volusia Live simultaneously. And then we are asking that if Volusia Live teacher or paraprofessional needs to quarantine, that they have the option to work remotely. And we put that in there because I thought somewhere in the reopening plan that I actually saw that if a teacher is asked to quarantine and is asymptomatic, that they are going to be asked to work remotely. So I thought that was in your reopening plan somewhere. Could have made it up, but we're putting that there. Let's see. So here's the video recording language. It's very similar to yours. And then, so we just have that students would be subject to discipline according to the student code of conduct. And that, here's that same attorney language. We talked about that. And then this was from the document that you shared. And I think we had this in ad hoc. That's why it's black and not red, that the district will provide all of the necessary tools. Any questions for Volusia Live?
No. Do you have questions? Anybody? No.
Okay. All right. So cleaning and safety. Again, we want to stay with the CDC guidelines. So that's where we are. We agree on the mask, policy 503. That's not a problem. And then temperatures. So that's a sticking point. So we want to keep our same language here. No bargaining unit employee shall be required to take temperatures of anyone other than themselves, and that they're not a supplement. The district shall provide PPE and replenish as needed. I believe we are in agreement here. Cafeteria, we're in agreement there. And then this is the one that we had highlighted before that we were going to talk about a little bit more, classroom sanitation. So we just added, because I believe that you had this right here, sanitation of the classroom will occur based on the reopening plan as approved by 7/15. We're good with that, but we just want to make sure that it's not the responsibility of a bargaining unit member. G and H, these are our same ones that we had before. G is the one where we have the designated contact at the school. And we're asking that the safety and sanitary issues be resolved within 24 to 48 hours. I don't think that was in the proposal that you just sent to us. And so that was that safety and sanitary issue language, because what was presented was reports will be reviewed, prioritized, and addressed, both at the school and district level. We just want them resolved. That's all. So I think that just shortened it, made it a little more concise within 24 and 48 hours. And then H, again, that's familiar. I don't believe that the proposal that was just sent had this concerns will be addressed to align with G. So we just wanted to connect those two. This one we agree on about the drills. And so this was the language that was just presented to us about symptomatic individuals. And we're not opposed to it, but we just need some more clarification around that. So can you help me understand what the protocol for clearance would be? So can you just explain that to me one more time so that I can understand it?
It would be right along the chart that we have for students as far as whether or not they have test-based or non-test-based clearance. So and I think the protocol says if a student is symptomatic and they're determined to be symptomatic, then the parents called, they come pick them up, and then they would not be returned to class until they have the test-based or non-test-based clearance.
Okay, so if they're up there and they're symptomatic, more than likely they're going home.
Correct.
And then they will not be returned to class. So what I'm trying to make
We're
sure.
not talking about the same day, if that's what.
That's what I
okay.
wanted to make sure we clarified, because I
Mhm.
just wouldn't want that to happen. So then I think, so we're good on that one then. When that can come off, that's good. Again, here we are back to CDC guidelines. Those are really important to us. The rest we agree on. We took out when practical, we talked about that before. Everything else we're in agreement. And then here, we're again asking for that weekly list by site, just site and numbers, no names, no identifying information, when we would like to have that weekly. So we're asking for that. And we know that Orange County, they just won this in a court case. So we feel that since we have that out there, that it's appropriate for us to ask for it. We already asked for it before they took that count to court, but it's important for us to have that information. So bridge back, we're good here, but we were thinking about this too. And we thought, we haven't really talked at all about what happens when parents decide that they're ready to put their students back in brick and mortar from Volusia Live. So we figured that would also be a bridge back to brick and mortar. It would fit under that heading because currently they're at home and they're going to come back to brick and mortar. So we thought it was appropriate to put this language in here, and it's got some X's in here because we wanted to talk to you about it. So when it becomes necessary to adjust staffing due to changes in student enrollment in Volusia Live, transitions will occur as described above. And so thinking that we need to do something here, and the class size amendment will be followed. All adjustments and corrections to class rosters will be completed within 5 working days. So just like students who are out at VOL, and we're anticipating at some point they're going to come back, students who are in Volusia Live at some point are going to come back. So how do we manage that? We've spent a lot of time talking about what we do to start with Volusia Live, but what do we do when we're coming back from it? That's all this is intended for.
Okay. Do you want to talk about that now? Is that?
Well, there's a little more in the, I
Okay.
just make sure I hit everything, and then,
Sure.
but if you want to talk about it, we can, right here.
No, I
wanna
think
speak?
we want to just keep going.
Okay. This was our retirement. We left this in because this is what we passed the other day. So we didn't want to just put a big hole in the document. So we left it here. Okay. And then, then we added an evaluation section.
Okay.
We talked about evaluations yesterday. And so for the duration of the MOU, the evaluations for bargaining unit members for this school year will be considered a training exercise, therefore will not be counted towards summative scores. And then we're good with the October 1st. If we can agree on A, we're agreeable to everything else that was suggested. Okay. And then we created an instructional prep and workload section. And this is where we have our ESE case managers and related service provider language, and that's about the paperwork that we've talked about before. We've got electives, and we want to follow class size limits for elective classes, and also follow social distancing and health guidelines. Now, these are all things that were in ad hoc that we had agreed on. So they are not aligned correctly because of me, but we've agreed on those. And these were in your other document as well.
Sure.
So then we had a last part, Volusia online learning. And so the red was what you just presented. We brought that over. And then we added the specifics like we had talked about this morning. So you'll see K3 is capped at 35 and 4-5 is capped at 45 per teacher. That's what was shared from Dr. Peterson. And then secondary at 180. And we just said, in this last line, instead of will, not exceed 4, shall not exceed 4 for the class preps. And that's it.
That's it.
Yes, I know.
That's a lot.
I know.
I mean, I feel, and I don't want to sound frustrated, but I am a little bit frustrated because it feels like every time that we come back with things that are just brand new. And I guess I'm trying to figure out where our end game is. If these are the things.
So let me think.
Like we had a long discussion yesterday.
Yeah.
We
Right.
said, what are all of the things we need to include? We went through, we included several things. And then today it feels like we're almost revisiting that again, and here's some more, and here's some more, and here's some more. And I don't know.
No, and I understand what you're saying, but I would say this, we did have a great discussion yesterday, and we did talk about a whole lot of things, but the things that we talked about, I didn't see them in the proposal that was shared with us today. So that's why we specifically included them in some of these line items. Like, for example, the thing about the SLPs. We talked about the SLPs yesterday. Where did it go? I mean, you're right. The document is getting larger and larger, but I don't even know where it went. But it doesn't matter how large the document is as large as we cover, as long as we cover stuff. So we talked about speech language clinicians, but I didn't see it in what you presented this morning. We talked about, there were some other things that we talked about yesterday that I didn't see in your proposal. Oh, the PE stuff and the Volusia Live liaison student.
Well, I didn't include the PE stuff because I thought we answered the question.
But you did answer the question, but for the purposes of providing clarity and understanding about what the expectations are, we wanted to include that in the document. So no one's going to have to guess. No one's going to have to say, oh, which bargaining session was that on the YouTube? Let me go try to find it. Nope, it's right in the document. It's right.
But we never discussed like, so like you've got this screen up, Volusia Live, where it becomes necessary. I mean, as far as bridging it back, the plan indicates very clearly that the purpose of Volusia Live is to maintain that connection. So if I'm a Volusia Live teacher, I've got, that's my roster of kids. And so when we end Volusia Live, or we no longer offer Volusia Live, when that day comes, those would be your kids. And
so let me make sure I understand what you're saying. So I'm a Volusia Live teacher, and I've got a roster of 15 kids, and I'm sitting in Palm Terrace Elementary in my classroom serving my Volusia Live 15. So if 6 of my Volusia Live 15 say, we're coming back to school, then I'm now going to be doing simultaneous face-to-face and Volusia Live teaching because 6 of my kids show up, and then I've got the other 9 on the computer. Where do those 6 go?
no, that's not what we're saying. Remember, we asked for the semester commitment. Christina, jump in here and correct me if I'm wrong. We asked for a semester commitment.
Yes,
So if at the end of that semester, when Volusia Live is over, now you may have a few, I do see a scenario where we have a parent who says, I just can't do this anymore. I'm going to bring the child back to school, right? So that child would then be just like we would at any elementary school where they want to change in teacher placement. But if I'm a Volusia Live teacher, we've asked for the semester commitment. So those students then, if we ended at the semester, they would revert back to that teacher's roster.
So what if only some of them come back and not all of them?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we're not offering Volusia Live, where would they go?
So are you saying to me that if VCS offers Volusia Live and parents select Volusia Live for their children, they are committed to Volusia Live for the duration of the program?
We asked for a 9-week commitment to Volusia. I'm looking at the screen for the message. We asked for a 9-week commitment from the parents for that, so that we would avoid that very scenario that you're talking about, where we have like one come in, one come out, one come in, one come out, that whole back and forth, because you want it to function like the brick and mortar classroom. The difference is the kids are participating through the computer. So what we would want is for the class to commit to that. Now, I'm not saying that you're not going to have a parent say, time out, I need to send my child back to school, because that could happen. And in that case, that would be a reassignment of teacher.
What we're saying is that at the end of a 9-week period, if you have you had 10 kids on Volusia Live and 5 of them decided to come back at the end, where does that put me as a teacher for the next 9 weeks?
Well, then I think you've got to do just like you would do at any school level. You're going to have to look at your school staffing and say, do I need to adjust how my Volusia Live units are allocated? Because at that point, you don't want to leave a teacher with just 5 kids, right? Like, you're going to have to look at your whole school as a staff and look at your staffing, and you may need to readjust those. I mean, we know it's going to be a very fluid model.
That sounds like it could destabilize a school at any given juncture. I mean, and I think, and to me, that sounds like a lot of uncertainty for our staff in some of those schools.
No.
I mean, why would I want to ever be a Volusia Live teacher then, if at any moment, or at least at the 9 weeks or semester break, I could now be facing having to change schools or having to come back to brick and mortar? I mean, before the COVID situation is.
I hate to say this, but to be honest, that was one of the reasons, and this is the consequence of having a dedicated teacher, right? Like, I hate, if we were able to set up our classes and say, these are our classes, and I've got a Volusia Live teacher who has like half and half, let's just use that for, this is not perfect, but I have 18 students. 9 of them are brick and mortar sitting in front of me, and 9 of them are Volusia Live. Then as those 9 cycle in and out, they would still be part of my class. But when we made the commitment to have a dedicated teacher, this is one of those consequences of making that commitment for a dedicated teacher.
Well, and I mean, I could say to you that it's a consequence of having the brick and mortar reopening as well. I mean, if we had,
well, that we have no control. That is not
right.
Not something that we have the
I
control over.
I understand, but I think that there would be by far greater consequences of taking all of our elementary school kids and trying to have someone teach them simultaneously. I think that's going to be.
Okay, so then we go back to, then we need to look at our staffings consistently to try to preserve that Volusia Live teacher. And that's going to mean some transition. And I think you used the word destabilization, but we're going to have to work together to make that as smooth as possible, because that's one of the issues that we're going to face.
And I think that's what we're asking for here, is we're asking for a way to work together to figure out how we how we adjust what we're doing as these numbers in Volusia Live start to go down. Because what I think everybody wants is for us to have the ability safely to reconvene in schools and do things the way we did them last year before March. I don't think there's anybody that would disagree that we don't want to return to our schools once it's safe. So what I see it almost like a funneling down. And I think that we could have conversations about what to do when the numbers start to shrink. Maybe we do go to that model that was discussed where one teacher is serving kids from, maybe a couple of schools that are within close proximity, and we figure out how to do that work. But I think the conversation is needed to just, we can't start something without having a way to account for what's going to happen when they come back. That's all we're asking for there.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about anything else that you thought was maybe an additional that?
Well, no, I don't want to. I mean, I actually, I don't. I do think that there are a lot of things in here that we've never seen before or discussed before. I mean, the sick leave bank alone is going to be a huge one that we're going to have to take some time. And again, I apologize for sounding frustrated, but it's frustrating when we feel like we've gone back and forth and.
Well, we're sitting here, we feel the same way. I mean, and as we, there are so many things that are occurring all the time. That's why before we went to caucus, I said, can you tell me about the plexiglass? Can you tell me about whatever else it was that we talked about? A couple things. Things are happening so quickly. And so, things are all over the place in our schools. And we know that there are inconsistencies. And so that's why we're wanting to try to put some of these things down in this document so that we can have some clarity and some guidance around these issues. This was not done with any maliciousness. This was not done with any intent to stall. I mean, I want to get this done as bad as you do, but I want to do it in a way that gives our folks some options and provides a safe environment for them. So that's really where we are.
What's our time to I don't know what time is it.
Two.
Yeah, we have 3
minutes.
minutes, so it's probably, we'll need to.
Okay, so obviously we're going to need to take this back. So can you send this to me and then
I will.
we'll
I'll send it. And then I guess we don't see each other again until Friday.
okay, we'll take it back and we'll reconvene Friday.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. Are we going to the breakout room?
Yes, please.